welcome everyone to this episode of Perpetual Perspectives powered by Vest Exchange. Vest is a novel perpetual futures exchange built on ZK Sync. I'm your host, Stoic, and today I have the pleasure of having Doc with me, DocXBT on Twitter. He's back on the podcast for a second time. So we won't be getting into a lengthy introduction, his background, and all that stuff. If you're looking for that, feel free to listen to the first episode, which actually Doc and I were talking offline. We recorded right around a year ago. So a lot has happened. Thank you for coming back on, Doc, and thank you for taking time to have this conversation with me. It's good to catch up.
Yeah, 100%, man. Thank you for having me back on. I think we had a really good time last time.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, like I was saying, we spoke right around a year ago, in February of 2024. I believe at the time Bitcoin was trading in the high 40s. A lot has happened since then. So let's start off with how the past year has been for you. And yeah, how has everything been?
Really good, man. I think, funny enough, February of last year, I think a lot has changed for me as far as like my trading goes, how I attack the market and how I'm trying to grow and scale capital. So it's actually a really interesting point because I point to Q1 of 2024 as a pivotal moment for me where I felt like I had something to prove. Coming out of Q4 of 2023, where we were talking offline about this a little bit, where things were just going nuts. That was our first kind of crazy risk on season of the cycle, where just stuff was flying off left and right. People were getting crazy airdrops. There were, protocols I'd never heard of that were popping off, different tech and stuff like that. And I felt like, I took it kind of personally. I felt like I was getting kind of outperformed by a lot of people. And I came into 2024 just really reflecting. I did my yearly review. And I said, okay, what are the things that are in my control that I can improve on? How can I extract more value and how can I improve as a participant in this market? And Q1 was all about that for me. So I took a different strategy going into 2024. That kind of carried me for the entire year. And yeah, man, that was a really interesting time. I don't think a lot of us knew. I actually don't remember the exact date that we recorded, but I don't think a lot of us understood how crazy it was going to get right after February, going into March and hitting new all-time highs. I certainly didn't have that on my bingo card as like new all-time highs before the halving.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting you say what your mentality was going into 24. And I think that's the athlete mentality, really. But how do you balance that? Because I think some people go too far in that direction of trying to like that competition and trying to get as much as they can extract out of the market. And they fall victim to actually giving away a lot of money doing that. So I'd like to get your take on that. Like what did you do to make sure that there was somewhat of a balance so you remained logical in that
Yeah.
approach?
Yeah, I understand. So for me, it was just about honest reflection. I was looking at like how much is in my control and how much is in my wheelhouse, right?
Right.
What can I extract better from my game plans? One of the things that really got down on me was I had been a Solana spot holder from the lows since like FTX. I was accumulating back then. And I never did anything with my Solana, right? I didn't stake it. I didn't do any DeFi protocol farming or anything like that. And people were getting crazy kind of Solana airdrops. I remember the Jupiter one was massive. One of my
Yeah, that
friends
was
was
massive.
yeah,
That was
50,
huge.
100K and stuff like that. And I felt really bad about that. I was like, well, why wasn't I locked into this stuff? I had a whole year to prepare. I could have done
Right.
these things. People informed me. And then I just came to the terms of like, that's not really in my wheelhouse. That's not really what I do. I don't really explore on chain. I don't really explore DeFi. I trade. And I was looking at my own trading and I said, did I extract max value from Solana itself? Is there anything else I could have done better? Were my trades on point? Did I size appropriately? Did I bet according to my conviction on the bets that I took, right? And those were the little things that I focused on improving in 2024. One of the big ones for me in 2020 that I learned is it's really not about catching every coin every week. It's not really about, for me, catching every new and shiny thing. It's about executing on my high conviction plays with size, like appropriately sizing into my high conviction plays when those moments come, right? And I think that was something that was really in my wheelhouse, that fit the system that I use in markets. And that was something that I really had a strong focus on in 2024. And I just kind of ignored everything else. I was like, look, I can't catch the 50 other things. And if I, the GCR quote, he who chases two rabbits catches neither. I kind of fell into that trap in Q4 of like trying to catch every rabbit in the market. And it was really taking back from my own trading, my mindset, my sleep, and basically my mentality, right? I was kind of like on tilt a little bit. And I
Yeah.
just took all that back and I said, screw all this. whatever's in my control, let me execute on that to the fullest form. And that was really my focus. And I'm, happy to say that it worked out really well for me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think that's so true. Like, you get into this regime, especially during a bull run, where it just gets overwhelming. And if you're trying to go in multiple different directions, you end up with like not the best returns, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you said, you need to focus on what you do best. Um, so I was actually going to ask you, and you kind of answered this already, like in terms of the lessons you've learned in the past year. Was there anything else that you'd like to add on to that? Any mistakes that you made, and you were like, okay, how did you go about adapting?
I'd say, man, there's so many mistakes. I do these public reviews, not really a self shill or anything like that, but I do these own like public reviews out there, and it's just a form of honest reflection of this is how my quarter went, this is how my year
Right,
went. These are the things that I've learned quarter to quarter, and I think a big thing for me in 2024 was just executing spot, using that as a weapon more than perps. As someone that came into the market in the bear market, there's not really a avenue to deploy spot as far as a weapon goes, right? The bulk of your capital is being very defensive,
right,
and holding stables. And I think the market was ripe in 2024 or 2023 for deploying kind of spot based strategies. So that was a weapon and tool that I used in 2024 that I learned upon 2023. And I'd say the biggest lesson for me in 2024 coming out of this is I need to trust myself even more. I think that was a lesson from 2022, 2023, 2024 is I kind of know what I'm doing. Like, just as humble as I could say that, there's certain things that I do well. And as long as I can continue trusting myself in those moments and executing my own strategies, I can live with the results, win, lose, or draw. It's just all about kind of self belief and removing the imposter syndrome, removing the idea that, hey, just because markets are going up does not mean that I'm not executing. I'm still making the conscious decision to, buy accumulation ranges and buy into trends, long trends, and take profits and execute when the market has basically told me we're not holding the structure anymore. We're not holding these trends anymore. Market regime has shifted, and to have the courage in those moments to actually take a step back and say my targets were higher, but the market is disagreeing with me here, and I have to close these positions now. So, TLDR of that ramble, it's just when you have something that works for you as a trader, you need to trust yourself to execute on those strategies and not get kind of sidetracked by everything else that's going on.
yeah, you mentioned some great things, Doc. I mean, you touched on conviction and sizing, and I think that doesn't sizing specifically. We were talking about this on Discord really briefly. It doesn't really get spoken about much. So
Yeah.
we'll revisit all those things. But I know you mentioned you've swapped your strategy in terms of moving more towards LTF, right? Lower
Yeah.
time frame. What changes have you made, and what does your system look like currently?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people that know me on Twitter for the past couple of years, or even YouTube or anything like that, know me as more of a trend trader.
Right,
H1, H4. I'd say that is a very easy strategy to use, as long as you know how to execute within the context of a trend. Right, same
right,
price action dynamics, breakers, liquidity, etc., so forth, and just add EMAs to that to understand that you are in a trending environment, not in a range bound environment. Right. The only downfall, I'd say, or pitfall of that strategy is because of the time frame that you're trading, the 4 hour time frame. There's only 6 4 hour candles in the day,
right,
and the entries and exits that you may get may be during hours that you're asleep. It may be when you're at the gym, maybe at the grocery store, maybe you're at a date night, maybe you're out with friends. And when you get those alerts, right, you have no choice other than to be active. And for 2 years, 2022, 2023, and going into 2024, I had no choice but to kind of sacrifice everything and be like available at those moments, right? And I was kind of like
right.
mentally not present when I'm with my family, friends, weekends, stuff like that.
Yep.
And the low time frame strategy is completely different, right? I'm not using EMAs. I care less about price action. I care less about liquidity sweeps, breakers, order blocks, these kind of things, and I care more about order flow, right? Absorption, and I use VWAPs as my template now instead of using EMAs. So
Nice.
it looks drastically different than the medium time
Yeah.
frame, high time frame strategy, but for me, I just focus on mean reversion, right? I'm not looking for momentum. I don't
Mhm.
play trends on low time frame. I just look for those offside moves, and try to mean revert. I don't overstay my welcome. Once I feel like I've
Yeah.
extracted the EV of the move, I take my profits, I get out. And the benefit of trading this way is I can kind of lock in and clock out, right? I can lock in for a few hours of the day. If I get something, I get something. If I don't, I don't. And I kind of have a cutoff or a time switch of like, okay, my day is done. I can move forward. I can turn my brain off. I don't have to be thinking about open positions overnight. I don't have to think about alerts that may go off. And I can have a real life alongside of trading.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been doing exactly the same. And it helps you really compartmentalize like your mental, sanity first and foremost.
Yeah.
And it really prevents you from like having to constantly be, on alert, really.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Like
it's
my
yeah, go
average
ahead.
time in trade for the 4 hour, 1 hour strategy was like 2 days. Right. So when your average trade time is about 2 days in a position, there's 2 nights where you're thinking about that position,
Yep.
right? Can alert
Yep.
go off? Am I gonna get stopped overnight? And even though it doesn't matter, meaning in terms of you've accepted the risk of the trade before
Exactly.
you've put it on, it's still
Yeah,
in your mind. Your brain doesn't
absolutely.
actually turn off until you've exited the position, closed your position, flattened out. And I think that takes a toll on certain people.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I think that's huge. What brought about the change? Was it just a regime shift, or like was this something that was planned? Like you were thinking about moving towards this approach for a while. How did you come about in terms of making that decision?
Yeah, so I think about markets or skill sets in a certain way. So, like, I think of the market as you could use a sports metaphor, but I'm going to go with a video game metaphor here. If you ever played like an MMO or an RPG, and you level up, you get a skill point, right? And you can choose to put that skill point in intellect or strength or wisdom or luck or whatever, right? I think markets are the same way, right? If you attack the market with one strategy, your goal should be to put all your skill points in that specific strategy and not really branch out too much early on. And when you feel like you have made that strategy a bread and butter thing, something that you can kind of mindlessly employ when the conditions are right for that. I think that is when the next step should be added, right? That's when you should move forward and be like, okay, are there any other edges in this market that I can explore? So I had started feeling comfortable with my strategy in 2023, and I just already understood that like this would be the next step. This is something that I want to do, something I move towards. And funny enough, I was very intimidated by it, if I'm telling you the truth. Like
Mhm.
I thought in the back of my mind that, I'm not this guy. I'm not a guy that could be making these quick decisions in the moment. How am I going to trade
Mhm.
1 minute charts? I have so much time to think about 4 hour trend trades. But how am I going to react in the moment, right? Am I cut out for this? How am I going to size? My sizing is going to look different, right? All these little
Right.
things were kind of in my mind before I had even attempted. So there was a mental barrier to get over just when I wanted to start trying this. And this was in March of 2024, right? This is when I basically thought, hey, Bitcoin has lost its 4 hour trend. We're going to enter probably a range bound market similar to how we did in 2023. We've seen the same dynamic play out now in Q4 2024. You lose a daily trend, you go into this kind of range bound choppy market. The uptrend's kind
Yep.
of over. So I thought that was a perfect condition. Was March of 2024 is like, okay, this is the perfect conditions to start employing the strategy. And I started tinkering with it. And I really spent the next 6 or 7 months just working on that kind of behind the scenes, not really talking about it too much because I didn't really, I wanted to get a hold on it before I start saying to the world, like, this is what I do now. Right.
Yeah.
So that was a good learning curve, right? And tinkering
Yeah.
with, do I want to be a momentum trader on low time frame? Do I want to trade mean
Right.
reversion? What
Yep.
tools am I actually going to use? What are giving me high signals? What do I prune from the system and remove? So it's a big learning curve for it, but I would say that, man, it's so much fun and better
Yeah.
for me and my mentality and
Yep.
everything.
Yeah, it's awesome. This is also a good tangent in terms of what I wanted to ask you. How do you view the current environment for Bitcoin and alts? And are you actively trading Bitcoin or alts? Like, what are you trading?
Yeah, I'm mainly trading majors right now. So in
Okay,
like I mentioned that chop regime from last summer, I trade a lot of Ethereum. Funny enough, I think people think Ethereum's this
interesting.
meme asset, but I think it trades extremely clean. It
Yeah, I
respects
agree with you,
levels
man.
very well. Yeah,
Yep.
it respects levels very well. It respects a lot of systems very well. It doesn't give
Yeah.
you a lot of false signals. I think that may be due to a lot of traders focusing on Bitcoin. So maybe there's a little of an edge in maybe a little bit
Mm,
less disciplined traders trading Ethereum, or maybe you get a little bit stronger signals there. So I trade a lot of Ethereum, but basically, to answer your question bluntly, it's just majors, right? I'm not really trading low time frames on altcoins whatsoever. It's mainly Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana.
Okay, and how do you view the environment
Oh
currently?
yeah, yeah.
We've
The
obviously
second part of
broken
your question.
down,
Yeah.
and yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, so for me right now, I've been in defense mode since December, right? A lot of my
Mhm.
positions lost their high time frame trends, and to me, that if you lose the trend that carries you into either price discovery or in just some kind of parabolic regime, and you lose that trend, one of two things is going to happen: either that it's going to full Burj Khalifa on you,
Yep.
or it's going to enter a kind of distribution slash reaccumulation, right? Time will tell which way that range is going to break. And that's when you take a step back and you say, look, I've extracted either 80% of this move. If you're lucky, you extract more of that move and you take your profits, right? You're always going to give some back off the top because no one's going to sell the Pico top, but you take your profits, go into defense mode. And for me, I'm just kind of looking for two things. I'm looking for sideways accumulation ranges on altcoins. Are we going to build value? And
Yeah.
which altcoins are going to build value higher relative to their 2024 value, right? So which coins are effectively going to reprice to higher valuations? Which coins are going to full Burj Khalifa? They're probably not going to give you the best returns the next time around. And will this even happen, right? I'm not going to start throwing chips and throwing spot into a market that's downtrending. I'm going to wait for it to go
Yeah.
sideways, right? And last year that looked like September, October was really when I started deploying heavy
Hmm.
cash into the market. That was after how many months, right, of that chop. So I'm kind of looking at the market the exact same way now. I can't tell you, are we going to go into a bear market? Are we going to enter another 8-month range on Bitcoin? Are altcoins going to survive? These are things that people like to speculate on and predict. And through my journey, I've just recognized that I'm not the best predictor, right? We all dabble in this speculative, prediction, GCR, like forecasting. And a
Yeah.
lot of that's just for clout, right? If you're right, you get a lot of
Absolutely.
clout. 99% of the time, you're going to be wrong. So I don't really have any bold bets. I have some levels that I want to work with. And that's really it, man. I'm in trader mode and until the market proves to me that it's building new value and I have something to work with as far as a high time frame and validation goes on high time frame trend continuation. When I have that, I can really work with it and put heavy chips back on the table.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm completely aligned with you on that. And it's kind of funny. I saw that you changed your PFP to have a McDonald's hat.
Yeah.
you posted you posted something about when I think I forget the tweet, but it was something about when trend traders start bringing their money into perps is
Oh
when
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the last stage of a bottoming process.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's funny because I was thinking about that because I don't know if you were looking at Kaito, but it had like a crazy squeeze because people were trying to short. It
Yep.
squeezed to like almost $3. And I'm like, okay, maybe some of that money is coming into alts now. So that
It
was
happens.
interesting.
It happens like clockwork, man. I tell
Yeah,
you, it happened in 2023 after we had our kind of Pepe, Harry Potter, Sonic, whatever, mini Ethereum meme coin alt season. And
yeah,
then we had it again in 2024 when the trenches really dried up. And that's when you see these ridiculous bleeds on Bitcoin where people are looking at, like, I got last $100 in the bank. How do I make big money from this if the meme coins aren't going up? Okay, let me go try perp trading. Hey, Bitcoin's
yeah,
holding this range. Let me just blindly long range low, right? And they get
yeah,
wiped. Their liquidations create the real bottom. That's where we get our mean reversion. And I just had this inkling about a week ago that, like, that's probably coming. We've been in a 20-day composite. The trench is dried
yep,
up. People are probably
yeah,
coming in to say, hey, look, longing range low is working. And lo and behold, look at the I think you saw it too, the open interest buildup
yep,
12 hours or 24 hours before we broke down was probably a bunch of people just thinking they can long range low.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, there's this conversation of like Bitcoin being the completely different asset compared to the rest of the space. Do you entertain that at all, or do you have any thoughts on that?
I like that idea. I'm secretly a Bitcoiner. I don't talk about it
Yeah,
ever. I believe in Bitcoin. I stack Bitcoin. I have a
yeah,
Bitcoin cold storage stack that I don't consider for trading or my net worth or anything like that. So I'm very, very happy with Bitcoin this cycle, man. I was a little bit concerned, if I'm going to be honest, in 2022 when the conversation pivoted to why do we need Bitcoin? ETH is ultrasound money, all these kind of
yeah,
things, and Bitcoin's bad for the environment, like all these just FUD things that we constantly regurgitate. And I'm really happy to see what happened with Bitcoin this cycle, as far as the ETFs, as far as, Trump and all these conversations opening up around Bitcoin. It's really just proving Bitcoiners right? The people that have been headstrong on Bitcoin for 14 years are kind of being proven right at this moment to an extent. I wouldn't say that it's 100% accurate as far as like Satoshi's vision, but proven right to an extent. So I'm very happy with that. I don't look at Bitcoin and altcoins as the same asset. I really don't. I know that a lot of people do. I'm one of those people that thinks of Bitcoin and crypto kind of separately.
Yeah.
And as you guys can, as everyone can tell, the altcoin market goes where Bitcoin leads, right? If Bitcoin's in a position of power, altcoins get to have fun. If Bitcoin's no longer in a position of power, altcoins do not get to have fun, right? And that dynamic is carried since the inception of this industry, and it hasn't changed. So, yeah, it's to TLDR once again. I do look at them as kind of separate assets.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that, man. Let's pivot a little bit, and we touched on some more nuanced stuff when it comes to trading. The first thing I'd like to ask you was, I read this tweet from the Flow Horse a while back, and I was talking to Mercury about this too. Part of the tweet said, "When I sit at my desk, it's for one reason: to make money." I really like that, because
Yeah.
a lot of people right now, especially when things are ranging or things are breaking down, they're just taking positions out of boredom, or they're trying to get revenge on the market.
Yeah.
And through you, I'd like for people listening in, there's a lot of people that can't manage that entire aspect of things. Like they'll just go get into positions out of boredom, or they're just trying to make money back that they've lost.
Yeah.
How did you combat this, and have you ever had to deal with that?
Yeah, so I like this. I like to say one thing when it comes to markets is that in any other avenue in life, any other career, anything that's worth doing, the money is separated from the skill set. Meaning, if you want to play basketball, tennis, anything like that, or be a doctor, be a lawyer, the craft comes first and the skill comes first, and then the money follows. Right? You put in a lot of hard work. You're not really thinking about the money. Right? An NBA player, yes, they will get a contract eventually, but when they're at the gym shooting hoops at 14 years old, are they thinking about the $1 million contract, or are they thinking about, I'm going to win a championship, I'm going to play for the Lakers, right? And I think that mindset is missing in trading, where a lot of people just tangle the money with the skill too
Mhm.
much, right?
Yeah.
Because in basketball, the tools that you need are a pair of shoes, a court, and a basketball. In markets, you need money. So money is your tool, money is your goal, money is your weapon, money is your outcome, money is your everything. And I think the most important thing for traders to do is try to separate the money from the skill, and come to work every day trying to be like, I'm going to get better, I'm going to take better trades, I'm
Yeah.
going to execute better, I'm going to look at these things more, right? And journal that progress, and be really self-reflective, and come into a mindset with, I'm going to employ this strategy for 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something. I'm going to gather data. I'm going to see what worked for me. I'm going to prune the things that didn't work for me. And I'm going to focus on the things that worked better, right? Okay, these things are working better. What part of this strategy is the best part? What are my signals, right? Okay, let me remove this part. Let me add this part, right? And if you look at markets like that, the money follows eventually. But too many people come into trading thinking, I'm going to make it in 6 months, I'm going to make it in a year, I'm going to make it in 2 years. But if you remove that deadline from your brain and just
Yeah.
go, I'm coming here to get better, and maybe I have this goal of 2 years, but let me give myself at least that much time to work with and not worry about it day one, right? And for me, when I came in and I said I'm going to do this full time, is in 2022, and I wasn't thinking to myself, I need to do this in a month or 6 months or anything. I was just like, I need to be prepared for 2024. And everything from 2022 to 2024 is a lesson. And I'm just trying to improve day to day, week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter. So what Flowhorse said about like sitting at the desk and trying to make money, I think that's very correct, right? You shouldn't want to just gamble and take these willy-nilly positions and just try to make money in the markets. You should try to come in with an idea of what you want to do, execute on that idea, gather data, reflect on that, and try to build off of it, as a game, as a skill, as a career, and try to separate the money a little bit would be my advice to anyone.
Yeah, I love that, Doc. And I think this is something I harp on and try to bring out in every conversation I have that gets recorded, is having a process-based approach versus an outcome-based approach, right? And
Yeah.
I think what you said, you hit it on the dot. Like a lot of people are just, it's all about the money and, the deadlines and the, yeah, the portfolio size and all that stuff. And I think yeah, when you're chasing after that, you're not focused on the approach or the process. And I think I've seen a lot of people fall victim to that and basically blow up multiple accounts and not be in the space anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, you hit it right on the dot. The other thing I wanted to talk to you, and you touched on this initially, was sizing, right?
Mhm.
Not many people talk about the art of sizing.
Yeah.
And you were talking about how you change your approach in terms of trading. You're more of an LTF trader now. You're looking for mean reversion plays. What are your general thoughts on sizing, and how did you go about developing your approach when it comes to sizing, and how has that changed with how you're trading, how you've been trading recently?
Yeah, so everything when it comes to sizing for me has been a trial, right? Meaning I'm going to kind of basically create the strategy for myself, test it, and then move on because I didn't have any guidance, right? I think one of the least talked about things in our industry, even great educators, is sizing. And there's this standard thing that a lot of people talk about, perp traders, ICT traders mainly, is trading 1R, right? And the concept of 1R is you have $100 in your account, you're risking $1 per trade, right? That's your maximum cutoff. If you get 2R return, meaning $2 return, $3 return, that's fantastic. I think that's a really good risk managed approach to learning, especially initially. But I don't think that's the optimal strategy for a market like crypto, where you're getting these outsized parabolic returns, right? So if you're coming in with the mindset of these years could be better, these sparks could get us to higher valuations, these targets are larger, these assets are underpriced relative to other assets, I think you need a bet in terms of that conviction to extract that value when it's there, right? Another thing is like with sizing, if you're taking this 1R strategy in an asset like Bitcoin that's capable of, like last year in 2024, marking up 130%, and you're profitable, but you extract 50R on the year, you've underperformed the asset that you're trading, right? You may be successful in your trading strategy. You've gathered value week over week. You're profitable, but are you beating the market? So is it the optimal strategy? So all these kind of things that traders have to deal with and questions they have to ask themselves is basically, how do I attack this market to gather max value? How do I manage my risk? And how do I bet appropriate to size? And what strategies do I employ? How do I put my capital to work? Is it all going to be perp trading? How much of that capital is going to go to perp trading? How much of that is going to go to spot? What kind of spot assets do I want to buy? How do I trade this spot? I need invalidations and risk management for this as well, right? And I think all of that is a system, right? And some people are naturally more risk adverse, and some people are naturally more risk accepting, right? They can bet bigger. Some people can bet smaller, right? So different hurdles for different people. For me, naturally, I'm more risk adverse, so I had to force myself to size bigger into certain moments. And I think there's a method to a lot of this madness of how do I separate this capital, right? And for me, that was kind of like 10% into the perps, and more into spot, right? Because I recognized early on, when I have a big perp portfolio, how much of that perp portfolio am I actually putting to work? If I'm
Hmm.
risking 1R on a trade, or 2R or 5R, I have 95% of my capital doing nothing. What
Yep.
use of that capital is there in my perp account, in my Bybit, Binance, whatever account? What is it doing there? It's collecting dust. If all I'm ever risking is 1R at a trade, or 2R, 3R, even if I have 2 or 3 or 4 open positions, I have all this capital doing nothing for me. Can I put that capital to use as well to, give me returns, right? And is my perp trading strategy good enough to beat Bitcoin using a 1R strategy? And a lot of the answers are no, right? And that's something people don't talk about. So what strategies are we going to employ as market participants in crypto specifically to gather these outsized returns? How are we going to put that capital to work? And these are the things that are not talked about a lot in our space. And for me, it was, like I said, it's just a trial method. What can I do in this environment? Is this environment
Mm.
catering to buying spot, or is this catering to being defensive? And how do I deploy that? What assets do I buy? What are the narratives in the market that I need to chase? Do I want to bet on the winner of this narrative, or do I want to buy the beta? Do I want to lever this position? Do I want to buy spot in this position? So all these things need to be managed. And like we said, has not talked about enough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is weighing out. How do you weigh out probabilities and develop conviction? You talked about developing conviction. What did that look like for you? That process.
Yeah, so when I talk about conviction, it's two-pronged, right? One is conviction directionally, right? How confident am I that the market is going to move in the direction that I'm betting on, right? So, two big conviction bets that I took last year were in April going into May of 2024. I was hyper confident that we were going to get a big bounce on Bitcoin, and I believed that certain altcoins were sitting in a position where their high time frame trends haven't broken, and they could
Mhm.
actually outperform Bitcoin in a big way, right? And I took an outsized trade in that time, putting a lot of capital behind that, just in a spot position. And the coins that I bought mainly were Ondo and Pepe, right? I did put some in Render, Solana, and other things, but
Mhm.
that conviction was built off of Bitcoin itself, using something I like to call news absorption, right? If we're getting this war FUD, right? And we've gotten this war FUD one time, two times, three times. Is the market digesting that information the exact same way all three times? Or are we getting weakening reactions to this news? If we are getting that, we're holding some levels that we have to work with. And the altcoins that I spoke about earlier are also doing that. Maybe there's a trade here that I can take, right? So that's one form of conviction. I also did that again in September and October. Another form of conviction is in the asset itself, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with a little bit of fundamental research, right? Can I understand the product that I'm buying? I think too many people in crypto buy things that are recommended to them by other people without actually knowing what they're buying. And I think if you have that borrowed conviction, you're borrowing this conviction from someone else. Two things can happen to you. One is you don't size appropriately, meaning you didn't learn enough about the asset. So you're not actually putting enough chips on the table to mirror the fundamentals of the trade, meaning this asset is valued at 100 million market cap, the competitors 1 billion. There's an arbitrage, if you will, trade to be had there. And you don't bet according to those fundamentals, meaning because you're borrowing that conviction from someone else. So you actually have to put in the work to learn the asset that you're buying. And the reverse of that is someone else is telling you about this coin. You're again borrowing conviction, and you may just oversize, right? And you may develop too much. You may rely on the other person too much for that trade, right? And you don't know when you're incorrect. You're kind of just thinking it's going to work out because X, Y, and Z told me it's going to work out, right? And you end up round tripping gains, becoming a bag holder, becoming a community member, holding on to this coin for multiple cycles, et cetera, et cetera. So when I speak about conviction, like I said, two ways. One is for trades, as far as like directional betting. I definitely want to size into those. And the second thing is for any kind of fundamental repricing trade when it comes to buying a specific asset in crypto, and really learning about it, so that I can size appropriate to that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful answer there. And you touched on, going between spot, like managing your spot portfolio and how you trade perps. How do you manage the two, and how did you like go about? Because I think a lot of people have an issue with bouncing between the two. Like they'll they have an issue with managing the spot portfolio and trading at the
Yeah.
same time. Do you like, in terms of risk management and how you manage the two? What's your process like in that?
So yeah, something that I learned very early on is if I am someone that's going to put 10% of my capital in my portfolio and 90% in spot, what portfolio is winning? What portfolio is gathering the bigger returns, right? If I put 90% into spot Solana and it moves from, the 2023 range of $15 to $25, is that a trade that I can take in and of itself? Do I have higher targets for that, right? And is that portfolio outperforming my PERT portfolio? And if the answer is yes, essentially what you're doing in this market is trying to come in and extract max value, right? And if one strategy is working better than the other, you really want to lean into that, right? And something that I recognize myself, I did pretty well trading in 2023, but I recognized that my spot portfolio, because of the market that we were in, vastly outperform my portfolio because of the sizing, because of how much
Hmm.
capital I put in one versus the other, right?
Yeah.
So what perps have become for me since then is basically an income tool. It's an income generating tool. It's a day-to-day, can I extract any value from this market? Because that's how I'm going to continue building chips in a market that's not catered to spot trading. But in a market that's catered to spot trading, I believe that sizing matters the most, right? You can get the same size on perps. You can get the same size on spot. It's just how do you want to attack the market, right? You can You can take the same trade on Bitcoin on spot if you have enough capital, or you can lever into that position. If you're levering into that position, you really need to understand that your entry is good and you're not going to get liquidated on this count. So it's different risks that come with that. But it all comes down to how you want to divide your capital between your spot and your per portfolio. And for me, whenever I'm trading spot, it's not 4-hour charts and 1-hour charts, it's dailies and weeklies, right? That's really what I'm focusing on: daily market structure and weekly market structure, and high time frame extension targets. And for per portfolio, it's completely different. It's much lower time frame. It's in and out of trades a little bit quicker, and it's an income generating tool, like I said, day to day, to just keep building chips, knowing that I'm not actually going to outperform the spot portfolio in crypto at all. But I need to continue building this skill set, continue getting reps into the market, continue challenging myself, exploring new things, and just building the chips when there's nothing else to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think a lot of people that are listening in, and we probably touched on this in the first conversation as well, but I like to ask everyone this is, how'd you go about like scaling your capital initially? Were
Yeah.
you, a lot of people, a lot more taking a lot more bets and risky bets compared to, after they grow their portfolio to a certain size? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, for me is a journey there for sure, right? In the beginning, I was someone that held a lot of stables. I was unwilling to
Mhm.
use my stables, and I traded a lot of perps. So I'd say 80% of my capital growth in the beginning came from perps. It wasn't until later, until I started using spot, when I started getting more comfortable with the crypto markets, understanding how they traded, understanding this market's not going to go to zero, and I'm generally buying into accumulation ranges, meaning coins have been going sideways for a long time, right? The market is deemed whatever coin this is at fair value, right? It's not trading higher, it's not trading lower, it's kind of trading within a 20-30% range at the lows. That was when I was getting into kind of the spot trading of it. But the scaling for me, I recognize at a certain point, I got kind of sized out of perps, right? There was a perp limit for me, for my mentality, where I could not accept
Mhm.
certain levels of entry volatility, for example, right?
Yep.
When you enter a perp trade, you see that P&L fluctuating around your entry. That's something that isn't there when you buy spot, just because you don't see those numbers on Ensilico. You don't see those numbers
Yeah.
immediately on the exchange that you're trading. You buy the
Yeah.
spot, you put it in your wallet, you understand the high time frame picture, you understand the trade that you're taking, and you're not kind of obsessed with that entry volatility. But generally speaking, when you take perp trades, it's a completely different mentality. And even losses feel different on perps, right? If you take a $500 loss on perps, for some reason or another, it hurts a little bit more than taking $1,000 loss on spot. I don't know why that is.
100%.
I don't know
100%.
what.
That's
Yeah,
so true.
I
Yeah.
don't know why that is, but it's there, right? So I recognize in my own kind of journey that I was getting sized out of perps at a certain point, right? I hit kind of a mental threshold where my position sizes can no longer increase on this perp side. So I started dedicating more and more time and more capital to trading spot, and recognizing, are there moments few times a year, like that famous MGNR quote, 5 times a year, there's free money on the
Yep.
floor, pick it up
Yeah.
and outperformance, right? And then do nothing, outperformance, excuse me. And I recognize that, right? And I said that if this is growing or capable of growing my capital faster, why am I putting more stress and putting in more work and taking more trades to do the same thing on the perp side when I can do this on spot? So when it came to scaling, and I recognized that limit that I had, that mental limit, call it a weakness, call it whatever you want. I think at a certain point, every single trader hits their mental limit as far as perp trading goes. That's when my mentality shifted. So that's something that I did in Q1 of 2024, is I kind of hit that limit. And I recognized, hey, if we're going to get risk on again in this market, and we're going to mark up again, there's a possibility coins could do a 2x. Bitcoin did a 2x. All coins could
Yep.
do a 3x, right? Now, if I'm putting 10% of my portfolio into perps, now I have to 30x this perp portfolio to get the same returns as a 3x on my spot portfolio, right? And you just do those mental math and you say, what's the easiest path forward? And for me, that was a big turning point. And when I started employing that strategy more heavily.
Yeah. Speaking of perps trading, I think one thing that I ask everyone, and it's also like a public service announcement for anyone listening in, is how do you approach leverage and how has that changed for you? And if you don't mind me asking, like, what kind of
Yeah.
leverage are you using currently? Because I think the barrier to entry when it comes to leverage trading is non-existent when it comes to this space, and just people just use it not
Yeah.
understanding what it's there for, right? And it just keep blowing up accounts.
Yeah.
So yeah, how do you approach leverage, and how has that changed for you over time? And if you don't mind sharing, like, what kind of leverage you
Yeah,
use
100%.
currently in your
Yeah,
position?
so the way that I think about leverage is it's a sizing tool as well, right? It's way to get access to more capital by using less capital, right? So if I want, say, for example, 6 figures of a Bitcoin position, I want to buy 1 Bitcoin. There's multiple ways to get that position sizing. You can buy spot, you can 2x lever, 3x lever, etc. You're accepting more risk the higher leverage you go, meaning liquidation risk on an account. And whenever I think about perp trading, all I ask myself is, what's my time frame for this trade? If it's shorter, I probably want to take a perp trade instead of going through the hassle of buying spot. Buying spot's a little bit more expensive, all these other things that come with it. And if I want to trade perps and get that same sizing and I have a shorter time frame expectation for this trade, I'm probably going to put on a perp swing trade. So I think of it as simply a sizing tool, right? If I'm trading intraday, like we talked about, I'm not going to be trading spot Bitcoin intraday, right? I think it's an easier, much easier execution function using in Silico Terminal and stuff like that, and just getting that perp trade in. But the leverage multiplier, I think, is a big psyop. I don't think it's a make more money faster tool at all. All I think
Yep.
is it's a counterparty risk tool. It allows you to have less money on an exchange and get access to the same size that you would otherwise get. The risk of your trade does not change, right? If I want to take, for example, on Bitcoin, if my stop loss is 5% lower and Bitcoin's trading at 100K, I'm accepting a $5,000 loss, right? If I buy that spot Bitcoin and get stopped out, it's a $5,000 loss. If I buy it through perps and get stopped out, it's a $5,000 loss. Nothing really changes there. For me, leverage is, like I said, it's a sizing tool. It's a way to get access to capital without putting all that capital on an exchange, protecting it in your own wallets, and basically just getting the same position sizes you would get anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're not offering any financial advice here. This is just for entertainment purposes. But I was asking Mercury this too, right? I know a lot of people, or a good chunk of people that might end up listening this, want to know, if you were in the position right now where you're holding altcoin bags that are down bad, what
Mhm.
advice would you give to yourself right now? What would you do?
I have a very simple answer for that. Would you
Yeah.
buy that coin today with the same amount of money that you currently have invested? If
Yep.
the answer is
Yep.
yes, hold. If the answer is no, sell. End of story,
Yep.
right? So if you're
Yep.
holding a bag and you invested 10K into a coin, right, and it went up to $100,000 and you round trip back to $20,000, all you do is you ask yourself today, would I buy $20,000 of this coin right here and right now? And if the answer is no, you wouldn't do that, you sell, because effectively by holding, you're making a conscious decision to open a new position, right? If you frame it in
Yeah.
that mentality, I think it really clears up things for people. Is basically just, would I buy this today with the size that I have, right? And if the answer is no, you sell it. If the answer is yes, you hold it. I think that everyone can go through their portfolios and make those decisions for themselves very easily.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. I haven't heard it put that way before. But yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Um, Do you, by the way, do you keep an eye on macro at all, or do you follow like what's going on in terms of news and announcements? Do you keep track of that at all?
Very little.
Yeah.
Most of the time, news is told to me rather than me seeking news or gathering it first myself. I've found through my own trading that I don't have an edge in digesting macro. I don't have a directional edge. And most of the times, if I try to apply my brain to analyze stuff, I'm wrong more than right, right? You would assume a coin flip would be right, 50% of the time. That's incorrect for me. If I try to digest macro, sometimes I end up more wrong than right. So the only tool that I use when it comes to news and macro is the concept that we talked about earlier a little bit, is news absorption. The market's
Yep.
reaction to this news, is it reacting positively? Is it reacting positively the second time, the third time, the fourth time? Are the reactions by the market equally strong, or are they getting weaker and weaker? Similarly with negative news, is the market reacting to it the same way the second and third and fourth time? And can I action this? in any meaningful way as far as reverting goes, or if I'm playing with that trend, it's a warning sign of maybe there's not that much juice left in this trend, being as that, we're not getting the same reactions again and again. That's the only way that I use macro, whether it's, FOMC rates, Trump being elected, or FTX blowing up. I look at it the exact same way in every avenue.
Got it. And we touched on this before, saying that it's pretty speculative to project what's going to happen next. But common question is if you have any short-term views or longer-term views. Like longer term, we'll say like the rest of the year. Any thoughts on that? It's obviously highly speculative in nature, but do you have any thoughts? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, I can make predictions. I would say I have no strong convictions, right? I have no strong convictions one way or another. If we end up going to zero, I could be like, okay, yeah, I can see that coming, right? The sitting president of the United States launched a meme coin. I don't know if we could top that with any other signal, right? What could be a bigger top signal than that? If we absorb this and we end up going sideways, I could also make that case that, yeah, Bitcoin is now a new TradFi macro asset. It has completely changed the dynamics now, and it has separated itself from altcoins. Somewhere down the line, the ES and can mark up again. We can get really good, tailwinds. And naturally, Bitcoin can mark up once again. If Bitcoin marks up again, obviously there's going to be a lot of risk appetite in crypto, and we can get another mini, risk on season. I wouldn't even call it an alt season, because they're just kind of these mini risk on seasons where you can take more risk and expose yourself to other things. So yeah, I don't really have any strong convictions one way or another. It's going to be very reactionary for me. I'd say the puke that we have right now, the 25% high to low, this is pretty in line with Bitcoin correction so far this cycle. So if we are still in a high time frame cycle, high time frame uptrend, I expect this to either bottom at the current prices that we're at, maybe a little bit lower, maybe even at 30%, because the biggest correction that we had this cycle was the Japan yen carry trade, which is 30% high to low. We could end up seeing something like that again at 30%, but it's pretty in line so far, right? And altcoins being down 70 to 80% again is nothing that we haven't seen. We saw that in 2023. We saw that in 2024. We're seeing that again right now. So it's, again, nothing that we haven't seen before. I'd say the biggest difference that I have seen is the risk appetite, right? The risk appetite from a lot of traders that have been around, and even the willingness to participate has decreased. So if I just use myself and I don't use anyone else as an example, I just talk about myself, I'd say I for the first time got burnt out in Q4. Thoroughly mentally exhausted by the market, exhausted by the news, exhausted by the shenanigans, exhausted by everything. And there was actually a point in my brain when we were at the top, in the tippy top and the highs, of just going, I kind of wish we just got a bear market, because I could really use 6 months off, right? I could really use just like 6 to 8 months just completely off, because I've been grinding for 2 to 3 years nonstop, right? 3 years nonstop. And yeah, that thought came across my mind. And if that's coming across my mind, I know that it's coming across other traders' minds. I think there's no universe where it isn't. And I've seen that kind of play out, where some of the smarter people, or people that I respect in this industry, have shown signs of a little bit of burnout. And I think they're less willing to be as aggressively participating in this market. They're kind of just like, I'll sit back, I'll wait, and I'll see. And I'm kind of taking the same stance myself here. Whereas people were more engaged last summer. That was the main difference. Is I feel like people were more locked in, more engaged day to day, week to week, with price, with mean reversion trades, with calling local bottoms, with putting their neck on the line. I'm not seeing as much of that right now. And I think it's just a product of where we've traded to, right? We traded from 15K to 108K, right? It's not a small markup. I think when you're sitting around previous all-time highs at 60K, you kind of go, yeah, we really haven't finished this yet. I think that mentality shift of, we did mark up, people made a lot of money, we have extracted a lot of value, we've gotten a lot of success, we have had 2 to 3 years of an uptrend, or 2 years of an uptrend. Maybe it's time to take a step back and kind of just see where the market takes us. So I'm kind of in that mindset as well right now. Like I said, I see these things, like if we just kind of range and go sideways for a while, yeah, it's pretty obvious. Bitcoin's just a macro asset now. If the whole picture, global picture for the financial markets looks okay, Bitcoin will be fine. If not, and we go to zero, you can make the argument, yeah, it was pretty obvious. Trump launching a meme coin marked a significant top.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat as you, man. In terms of like aggressive participation, I've definitely taken a huge step back in terms of, just being actively involved and being tied into the space 24/7 right now. So yeah, that's completely in line with what I've seen across the board as well. like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Are
think
there any? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, just one last thing, like when I say the aggressive participation too, I think less people are like thinking about where's my next big compounding trade coming from, right? I think
Yeah,
before you were
yeah,
kind of thinking about that, like, okay, I have this goal. Where's my next trade? And I think more people are like, okay, what can I do with this money now? Do I buy a house? Do I do this? Right? I think that mentality has kind of shifted away from this
yeah.
aggressive risk-seeking behavior to more of a defensive, what can I do with this money behavior?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like my thing is like being involved passively, obviously, in terms of making sure that I still am tied in enough so that if I don't lose out on any big opportunities. But at the same time, I'm definitely not looking to be aggressively involved in the market right now.
Yeah.
Are along the same, are there any narratives that you're interested in right now, or anything that you're keeping your eye on at all?
I think the most value would be new launches, right? I think we saw that with
Yep.
Barachain, Kaito. There's a
Yeah.
couple other ones in the market right now, and this dynamic is not new. I think just having a new coin, no bag holders, no price discovery, no fair value, a lot of volatility caters to good trades out there. So I'd say just keep your eye on new coin launches. They're definitely going to be more fruitful than existing coins in the market right now. But as far as narratives go, I really don't see any. If we just take a look at the old narratives that we've been trading around as meme coins, I feel like they've hit a significant top with Trump launching one.
Yep. Yeah.
Hyperliquid is a narrative in and of itself. If we see less and less trading activity, how active is Hyperliquid going to be, right? New coin launches, the RWA narrative never really took off. It kind of had its moments. I know OM is doing fantastic right now. But yeah, nothing too exciting from my end, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think it's interesting because I have a friend who literally just trades new coins. So you can have an edge there, just understanding the dynamics of how new coins trade and what goes on around those launches. And just trade those, But yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, man. I don't think there's any narratives that really significantly pique my interest currently, that I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did ask Twitter if we had any questions. So I think let's pivot and see if there are any questions there.
Sure.
Let's see. Okay, Magus is at the top. Does Doc regret drawing the gay line on Solana?
That's a funny one.
Oh
So
man.
I think that's going to require a little bit of context.
All right, let's hear it.
Yeah, so Solana was my high conviction bet. I had two high conviction bets this cycle. One is that I believed Pepe was kind of the meme coin of the internet. It is more involved in social activities as far as gaming goes, or online culture, forums, stuff like that. More recognizable, very normie friendly. We could get behind it. And it could probably attack and flip ship, right? So that was a big conviction bet. The second conviction bet was with Solana, being that it got overburned by FTX. There was still a lot of activity on Solana in the bear market. Other chains got abandoned, AVAX and other things, FTM. Solana still stayed pretty active. The community stayed pretty active. And I thought it got overburdened, right? 97% high to low. I thought that was ridiculous. And I thought that was a trade to take there. I was proven right in that. But the gay line thing was in November of November of last year. We were breaking out. Solana had broken out of the 8-month range that I was in. It was one of the strongest coins last year, and I basically said Solana to $300 in 10 days, or I'm gay, right? I just kind of in the heat of the moment and the fun, I tweeted something out like
I think I
that.
saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we came up short the first time. We dropped to the weekly trend, weekly demand, really good setup. And we ripped again, and I think we went to $297, and I put the gay line
Yep.
on there on my chart, and I was like, look, we're gonna hit 300. We came up short once again. So I think it's going to be something that I'm going to have to live with forever, because we're down at 130. And if we do enter a bear market, who knows if Solana hits that number ever, or maybe the next cycle. It's something that I'm going to have to live down, and the jokes are great, to be honest.
Bro, you should have
I
just
don't
moved
mind.
the gay line down a little bit.
Yeah.
You just moved it down a couple of dollars.
Yeah, but no, to answer Maggie's questions, absolutely not. I don't regret it whatsoever. I think one of the big parts of this cycle for me, I didn't get to enjoy the fun part of last bull market. I came in somewhere towards the top. I wasn't really active on CT. I didn't understand the culture. I didn't understand crypto culture. And I saw people having fun, making jokes, and being in this market for the last 3 years. I made a lot of friends. I enjoyed these moments with a lot of people, the shenanigans, the good times, the bad times, and everything. And when the market's going super risk on, I like to have fun too, right? I think, if you're being serious everywhere in the market, in Discord, with your friends in the group chats and Twitter, it's just like you need a release to have some fun. And I've pivoted to just using my Twitter to have that fun. So, saying those kind of things publicly, like, who cares if I'm right? Who cares if I'm wrong? It's all in
Yeah,
the name of
yeah,
having a good time when the markets are risk on. Everyone's making money. All everyone's coins are going up. Everyone's having a good time. And, I always think about the moments that I missed last cycle. And I always thought about, hey, when it comes around again, like, I'll have these stories and these moments. And I was a part of all these things this time around. So, if that lore sticks around, I'm happy to be a part of it.
yeah. The gay line salon, the
Yeah.
gay salon. Okay. Next question. SchizoFlow asks, what SUV did Doc end up getting?
I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm gonna get the
Okay.
RSQ8, Audi
Oh,
RSQ8.
nice,
Yeah, that's gonna be the one.
nice. That's a good one.
Yeah,
What
man.
were you
We
between? What were you between?
So I test drove a bunch. The first thing that came to mind was a Range Rover. I heard a
Yeah.
lot of negative things as far as like servicing
Yeah.
goes and warranty and
Yep.
all that. So I was like, okay, we'll scratch that off. Even though it's really nice, we'll scratch it off. The next thing was the Porsche Cayenne. I test drove it,
Okay.
the GTS.
Mhm.
I liked it, but I didn't. Was sitting inside of it, I didn't really feel the connection. I didn't really feel
Okay.
like this was the car. We went on to the BMW lineups and stuff like that. I already have a BMW, so it's kind of like I don't really want to. Audi, I kind of just threw off. I was like, we're just gonna quickly, come in and come out and just screw this. I'm not really interested in Audi, and I really liked that car. It was fast as hell. It was really luxurious on the inside, the Alcantara,
Yep.
the seats, everything like that. So I said, you
Yeah.
know what, this one might be it. And they told me, I didn't even know this, that it had the Lamborghini Urus engine in it, and I was like, okay, that makes
Oh yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah. Yep.
That
Yep.
makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, congratulations in advance, man. That's a great car.
yeah. Thank you.
I've sat in one. I can't say I've driven one. I've sat in a friend's RSQ8, and that thing is fast.
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay, let's see. What else do we have? The giver said, "You mean McDoc?" Not really a question, but yeah. Let's
Giver's
see.
awesome, man. That guy's been so on point.
Yeah, I had him on. I had him on. I think it's been a few weeks.
I gotta listen to that.
Yeah. Please speak on the type of indicators that you use.
Kind of a boring question. I did a thread on this,
Yeah,
so
that's you. You've already.
maybe we can link
Yeah,
the
just go.
thread.
Yeah, just go read the thread. Um.
Yep, we can link
Okay,
that in the
let's see.
replies.
How did he find his edge in the beginning? And his
Mhm.
opinion on the influence of social media to a newbie. Is it helpful? Is it bad? Should one rather not listen to too many opinions?
Ooh, great. That's actually a great question. So
Yeah, that is a good question.
So on the topic of edge, I always like feared away from this, like shied away from this. I always thought this was like this magical thing that everyone had. They have this secret hidden edge that no one else knows about, and they're not going to share with anyone. And oh my God, how am I going to find my own edge in the market? Is that the only way to be profitable? Um, and through time and experience, I recognize that it's just a fancy thing people like to say, like edge, right? It makes people feel cooler and smarter and whatever, right? Edge is doing the right things again and again. Edge can be
Mhm.
discipline. Edge can be the work that you put in day in and day out. Edge can be the mentality that you carry in the market. Edge can be doing the things that other people don't want to do. Right now, the markets aren't that nice, right? And a lot of people are saying, "Don't trade this market. Don't do anything. Sit on your hands." How are you going to know when the good times are around if you can't trade the bad times? Are you going to shy away from if you're a marathon runner? Oh, it's raining outside. I can't trade. I can't run today. Like these are the moments. Like I'm not saying trade your entire stack, but get involved. Pay attention to the markets. Take mental trades. Take paper trades if you have to. Size down. Be involved. Learn through these times. Right. Doing the things that other people don't want to do. And then edge can be discipline, right? Discipline to not take the trades that you're not supposed to take, right? There's this really good line in markets that's we trade, or excuse me, we plan trades that we don't take, and we take trades that we don't plan, right? And that's a whole discipline quote right there, meaning if you're planning to take a setup and you don't execute at the last moment because you're scared or some news dropped or someone talked about it in a different fashion, someone has a different idea than you, and that trade plays out, you've only hurt yourself, right? Not executing on your own ideas. And then if you miss a trade and you just pivot completely, okay, I missed this entry, let me go trade this coin in 10 seconds that I didn't even plan on taking, and you take an unnecessary loss, right? So edge really is discipline, and that's my edge. I think that's my edge in markets is understanding that this is a sport. This is not something academic. This is something that you need to train for, attack like a profession, do repeatedly, cut out your mistakes, reflect, and that can become your edge. And eventually your edge becomes a setup that you know has a high probability of working out, and waiting and having the discipline to wait for that setup to form and then executing when you're supposed to. And that's really the answer there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you hit it. I mean, you hit it right on the dot. If you're consistently profitable, that's edge. Like you found
Yeah.
something that's like providing you the ability to do so.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, it's just people. I mean, there are certain edges that are very nuanced and mechanical, and you can get
100%.
into like that discussion. And those don't last long, right? I mean,
Yeah.
in markets now, those don't last long because that's just how it works. Um, the other question, the other question was actually his opinion on the influence of social media to a newbie. Is it helpful, bad? Should one rather not listen to too many opinions? And that's
Yeah.
from G Cryot. Okay, yeah.
I got it. So I'll say this. I would say that CT was absolutely instrumental in my foundation. Had I not found crypto Twitter, in 2021, I followed a lot of wrong people. I followed a lot of whatever. But through the rough, I found a couple diamonds. I found Trader XO. I found Magus. I found Pierre. Found CBS. I found educators in the space. And all of them, all the people I just mentioned, trade in completely different ways. So is their influence necessary? I would say to an extent, yes, because they have found something that allows them to be consistently profitable in markets. And if they want to share any part of that education to the public on YouTube and their public streams or whatnot, I think you owe it to yourself to listen and take the nuggets of wisdom that they're dropping. Now, as far as it comes to building a system, you need to do one thing, right? You can't do all 5 of their systems. You need to find the one that you find fun. And I think that's your starting point, is what is the most entertaining to you, right? What is the chart layout that looks the coolest, right? What is the system that sounds the most fun? Do you find it fun to see other people's orders and trade order flow? Do you think liquidity charts look really nice? ICT trading, white backgrounds, black and white candlesticks, and just one line drawn across, right? Is that attractive to you? Do you find joy in that, fun in that? Because this game has to be fun to a certain extent. And then just don't deviate from that system, right? Keep trading that one consistent thing. And once you have that, then you have to block out all the other noises on social media. You have to execute on your one way of attacking the market. When I say system, all systems are just risk management tools that allow you to get into positions at ideal locations and get out of positions at ideal locations and understand where you're wrong, right? A system can be used of any tools, any layouts, anything like that. So there is an extent where you should seek wisdom from people people that have it, and there's a learning curve there. Initially, you're going to follow the wrong people, and you're going to learn the wrong things, and you're going to maybe even have a moment where you have to unlearn some bad habits in order to make room for the correct ones. And then once you've developed something, or actually leaned on something that you find attractive, you owe it to yourself to now start blocking out other voices and not listening to everyone's opinions on Twitter, because all that's there is to distract you from the idea that you have as far as executing on a trade or a position or anything like that. So many times you could be really biased in one direction, have a lot of confluence, and just someone says something tongue in cheek, and now that's in your mind. And now either you size down in your position, or you don't take the position, or you may even take the inverse of the position, right? That's just cutting into your own progress. So yeah, there's a give and take there, man. I think there's a lot of value on Twitter. I think that value is decreased, but you have guys like Stoic, right? He's, Stoic's not putting out a bunch of junk every day. He's probably entertained by the shit posting, but he doesn't partake in any shit posting. He's high signal. right? He's a diamond in the rough out there, right? So there's a lot of good people to follow on Twitter that are putting a lot of education out there, that you can gather a lot of value from. But just, start tuning some stuff out. Like if I showed you my block and mute list, you'd be shocked.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Doc. And also, I think you mentioned a great point. I've spoken to so many people at this point that are very successful at what they do when it comes to trading or being in the market, and it's a wide variety of how they approach things. Some people don't even use charts. Like the giver, he doesn't use charts. He doesn't
Yeah.
even look at. He doesn't really use charts. Then you have people who just trade naked price charts. Then you have people who obviously use order flow. Some people use
Yep.
very nuanced stuff. They trade the DOM.
Yep.
So yeah, it's all really a matter of like, it's also very unique, right? It depends on what your psychology is,
Yep.
how you break things down and how you view the market. So it's like you need to make it fun for yourself and the approach that works best for you, really.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, like you
Like
said, I
what I
mean, yeah, go ahead.
No, go on. Sorry.
I was just gonna say there's still good people out there. I mean, like you said, there is a lot of noise now. There's a lot of garbage, but yeah, if you really take the time to look through, there are some people that are still providing. People like EXO, he's still posting like actionable stuff, and I was actually talking to him the other day. We had a great conversation, and yeah, there's still great people out there. I mean, you still post great stuff, man. You still post like
I'm
very actionable stuff. You post your
Yeah.
like your roundups and all that stuff. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've gotten away with it on Twitter for sure. Just like I said, because I'm all business on YouTube, all business in the clinic and Paragon and all these other
Yeah.
avenues. And I kind of use Twitter as a little bit of release. So I like to have some fun on there. And the more my account grows, the more, chirpy reply guys are in there. And I just like to have
Yeah.
fun most of the
Yep.
time. But
Yeah.
I think, a pivot that I'm going to do is if this market goes back to being like junky and unfavorable and we get a big tourist wipeout, right? Where a lot of
Yeah.
people that come in just for the fun times are leaving, I will definitely pivot back to going high signal because I feel that I want to reward people that are actually here to learn,
Yeah.
to grow, that are hungry, that are determined. And that's why I provide so much more value on YouTube. I almost overshare sometimes, I would say, on YouTube into
Mm,
like little nuanced things that I find edge in because those are the people that go out of their day and they click an extra button.
yeah.
They go to YouTube, they're watching my channel for 2 hours, they're hungry and they're determined. And I remember being that guy of watching XO streams and
Yep.
studying him. And if that was instrumental, like I said, to my growth. So I think that there's certain people in this market that are more determined, more hungry, more hardworking, and they deserve more wisdom than the tourists that come in for 2 months when shitcoins are popping off.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Yeah. Let's see. What else do we have? What hobbies is he planning to pick up in the coming 2 years? By WizLiz.
Oh, okay. I know Wiz. He's a homie in the clinic. So he's
Okay.
he's basically he's putting out a bearish question out there of like, oh, the markets are going to zero. What are you gonna do in your spare time? Honestly, for me, there's a lot there. There's well, number one is getting my athletic figure back. Right, I was an athlete my whole life. I was a tennis player. I was in shape. I was in the
Yeah.
greatest shape of my life right before I started getting obsessed with markets. I'm on a big journey right now to get all that form back. I've been pretty dedicated in the gym the past 2 months. That's a big focus of this year. So that's not really a hobby, but that's a lifestyle change. I'd say other hobbies though is going to be like hunting and fishing, more outdoorsy activities. Now that I'm living in Florida, I don't know if I'm going to get into surfing, but definitely some kind of water sports, maybe wakeboarding or something like that. But hunting and fishing is something that's top of the list.
Okay. Awesome. This last one here, I'd be curious to hear more about Doc's intraday system. I think we covered that already.
Yeah.
And also, like for anyone listening in, you mentioned that you drop a lot more on YouTube. So make sure to check out Doc's YouTube channel. Go subscribe to him. I think he deserves more subscribers for sure on YouTube. So go and subscribe to him. Make sure to do that. And I think that pretty much wraps up all the questions that we got from the audience. And
Sounds
now we're going, since you've been scalping and deploying more of your level 1 thinking, we're going to try something different. Okay. I don't know if we
Okay.
did this last time. I do this like rapid fire thing where I just say like a word or whatever, and then you just respond with whatever comes to your mind first. If you're down, let's do it.
Oh boy. All right, let's try it.
All right. Solana.
Meme coins.
ETH.
Disappointing.
Pump Fund.
Um, fun for certain people.
The question: what part of the cycle are we in?
8th inning.
Crypto Twitter.
Family.
Trump and crypto.
Valuable.
Bitcoin.
Digital gold.
Meme coins.
Value creation.
Altcoins.
Value creation.
All right, that wraps it up. I will go more further with that. All right. So before I wrap up the conversation, I usually just like to talk about, what, or ask what a typical day looks like for you right now. What's your current routine?
Yep.
How are you managing your time?
Typical day. I get an earlier start now. East Coast timing so much better for markets, in my opinion, than West Coast timing.
Yes.
I have more time to prepare for the market ahead. I actually catch some entries pre-market nowadays, as far
Yep.
as the mean version goes, before New York Open. But yeah, I'm very active for the first, I'd say 4 hours of the New York Open. I don't really trade the end of that. I spend a lot of time teaching, educating in Paragon, certain streams per week. I have my Monday streams on the public channel, and talking to the homies, man. A lot of my day online is just talking to homies, having fun, people that are in this industry. I feel like I've gotten a lot of value from people over the years, and learned from so many people just in conversations. And maybe a lot of that is behind me, and now a lot of it is just we're in the same market every day, and it's just water cooler talk, right? And I think a big part of this is, Magus talks about this a lot, is finding ways not to burn out and
Mhm.
having fun in what you do, right? I came into crypto because I had a lot of fun. I had something to prove to myself. I had a desire. I really enjoyed markets, but at the same point, that was fun, right? It was fun being on crypto Twitter. It was fun seeing the shenanigans. It was fun seeing all these things happen, and remembering that this market can be a lot of fun, and the people in here are really, really good people. And a lot of the friends I made along the way are amazing people, and just, having a good time with them day in and day out, and talking about the markets and stuff. And after that, gym, spend time with the girlfriend, animals, walk the dog, normal human activities.
Yeah, but normal human activities aren't so normal to a lot of people in this space. So yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
awesome, man. That's awesome. Glad to hear that. Are there
Yeah.
any new things that you're looking to do? I mean, you did mention the hunting, fishing, and obviously
Yeah.
getting back in the gym, being consistent with that.
Yeah.
But is there anything else that you have that you're thinking about doing in the future?
As far as real life goes, not really, man. I think the next step would be buying a bigger house. I just moved to Florida, so this is kind of like the placeholder, right? That's a big thing, is getting another house, getting married. Hopefully my girlfriend can't hear me in the other room. Um, that's a big goal for this year as well. So
Yep,
maybe you'll hear something
yep.
about that in a few months.
Awesome, man. Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Man, I really appreciate you taking the time, Doc. It's been an enjoyable conversation, and I love having you on
100%.
the second time. We'll have to bring you on again in the future.
Anytime, brother. Anytime. I love these conversations. You ask really good questions, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. And usually I end these like on a quote or a statement. And in light of you being on this episode, I like to end on a statement from the great Roger Federer. I believed in myself, but belief in yourself has to be earned. So to everyone listening in, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. And I'm going to continue to try to bring on some great guests on the podcast. So stay tuned. And until next time, thank you.
Yep. Cheers, guys.